Hey, welcome in. Well, here's the headline. NPR mocked for article on white privilege emojis. Now, I have to ask the question, is this the world that the modern left really wants? A world where nothing, no matter how microscopic, how insignificant, or just straight up imaginary, that they can't find a way to pretend that it's oppression. I think we have to conclude, yes, that's the world that they want. Because if they can't find something to call an ism or somebody to call a phobe or an ist of some kind, well, they've really got nothing to do because that's their whole ideology. That's what they live for. They call themselves anti-racist. They call themselves allies. This is how they define themselves. This is what they feed off. They need it. And so nothing is too trivial for them to turn into some sort of an oppression, to turn into some sort of heresy against their weird cult. And this is a great example. NPR mocked for article on white privilege emojis. Well, they should be mocked. This used to be called satire. Now it's just real life. Anyway, let's take a look at this article. NPR was ridiculed on Wednesday for its take on emojis and how some can supposedly denote white privilege. Well, what doesn't? NPR has already accused Dave Chappelle of having white privilege. You know who Dave Chappelle is, right? Talking about his special, The Closer, they did say that it sounds like Chappelle is using his white privilege to excuse his own homophobia and transphobia. So I guess if Dave Chappelle can have white privilege, I guess that emojis can too. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, of course, but we are talking about NPR. So anyway, so this article from NPR said, which skin color emoji should you use? The answer can be more complex than you think. What's the worst that can happen from a society focusing on insane bullshit like this? I mean, I guess the worst that could happen would be a society of neurotic, paranoid lunatics. And actually, yeah, that'd be bad, right? But anyway, and let's actually go to the article from NPR. So I just mentioned something about people becoming neurotic and paranoid, right? All right, let's take a look at this. Heath Resella identifies as 3/4 white and 1/4 Filipino. When texting, he chooses a yellow emoji instead of a skin tone option because he feels it doesn't represent any specific ethnicity or color. He doesn't want people to view his texts in a particular way. He wants to go with what he sees as the neutral option and focus on the message, because this is totally healthy. Quote, I present as very pale, very light-skinned. And if I use the white emoji, I feel like I'm betraying the part of myself that's Filipino. This is over emojis. But okay, all right, let's give this a chance. Quote, but if I use a darker color emoji, which maybe more closely matches what I see when I look at my whole family, it's not what the world sees, and people tend to judge that. First off, I don't give a shit what emoji anybody uses, and personally, I don't use emojis because I think emojis are for children. And on top of that, even children shouldn't be using them because they shouldn't have phones anyway, because smartphones are poison to them. Not least because they might see articles like this. Let's see, quote, I use the brown one that matches me, said Sarai Cole, an opera singer in Germany. Quote, I have some friends who use the brown ones too, but they are not brown themselves. This confuses me. It sounds like everybody's getting pretty confused these days, doesn't it? Let's see, Jennifer Epperson from Houston identifies as black and said she changed her approach depending on who she was talking to. Quote, I use the default emoji, the yellow-toned one for professional settings, and then I use the dark brown emoji for friends and family. I just don't have the emotional capacity to unpack race relations in the professional setting. So leftism is working out great. It's working out just awesome. People are paranoid over which emoji to use. And let me repeat, don't use them. They're stupid. Use words. How about that? But again, I ask, is this really the world that we want? A world where everybody is just slowly being driven insane? I mean, how about this? How about we all just be people? How about that? How about we all just be individuals? But anyway, How about this? Is the yellow emoji really neutral? Don't give a shit. The world is bigger than you and the emoji that you use. You know, if emojis just disappeared tomorrow, we'd all be just fine. You realize that, right? We'd all be just fine. Let's see. She said there was a default in society to associate whiteness with being raceless, and the emojis gave white people an option to make their race explicit. What does that even mean? None of this makes any sense. Let's see. Apparently there's no specific answer to all the questions about emoji use that nobody had until this article was written, apparently, but said it was an opportunity to think about how people want to represent their identities. How about just try being a decent human being? Because ultimately, it's about how you treat other people that determines how they're going to treat you and how they're going to view you. At the end of the day, the rest is irrelevant. Let's see, quote, I think it's more of one of those places where we just have to think about who we are and how we want to represent our identities. And maybe it does change depending on the season, depending on the context. And maybe you're part of a cult. Maybe realize you're just one of billions of people on the planet. Your neurotic obsession about which emoji to use is not actually important. In fact, it's quite sad. And it certainly doesn't make you interesting. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you just like to listen, there's the podcast Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform. If you look for it, you will find it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.